Hi, everyone. We are back on the heart chakra and we're in week 2. We are bringing the love into body systems and, in particular, looking at the breath. We're going to focus our collective efforts this week into something very simple but yet very pivotal, and that is the breath, the act of breathing. And through the breath, how we are interconnecting all the different body systems. It's a unifying factor. And the breath ties into circulation of blood, as well as nutrients, as well as toxins, and oxygenation of tissues. So I'm actually really excited. I think that this is a really big theme for so many people. And as our tissues become less efficient, our blood is less fortified, we have less nutrients, this part of us becomes a bit faulty. And there's a parallel that we could draw with our symbolic psychological lives too, right? So we need to take care of ourselves with the building blocks of the breath. Every breath that is coming in builds our being. And so here again is where I think of the root and the love coming together. The root, because we've got the red blood cells, that carries at its core, if we think of iron, and there's a great video that you're going to see that I'm recommending. It's a TED Talk talking about cosmic matter and the role of iron and our existence. And many people are turned off by iron because too much iron can lead to rancidity and a pro-oxidant effect. And yeah, we know that. Yet we do need to look into I do think that this is my take, the physiology of breath, and then take that into, again, the symbolic realm. And then how can we breathe better? I have a number of other videos for you, 2 of them specifically. One is my favorite, the Wim Hof technique, and then the other one is a TED Talk from more of a yogi perspective, but also bringing in some of the science of breath. So this week is all about something really simple, something we're doing every moment. And yet we probably don't have that awareness of how we're doing it. So I'm going to make this really simple for this week so that we can really anchor into our breath. As we move into the activity of noticing our breath, I would like for all of us to look at all the different body systems that are connected to the heart chakra. So our armpits, breathing in different formats, whether we're breathing with our arms in different contortions. And there are some practices like that, whether bringing our hands together in a prayer pose in front of our chest, having our hands not together and not close to the chest, but on our lap or on our legs. So try out different postures as it relates to your breathing. And I'd like you to note how you feel before and after a very intentional breath awareness exercise. The essence of being in nature's lungs or even in nature's heart, which is the heart of the forest, the heart of nature, being surrounded, embraced, enrobed through all of nature's expansiveness. And so even just looking at this photograph of a forest, well, for myself, the feeling that I get within is that of peace, harmony, feeling oneness. And that's, nature, again, being so threaded into all of the chakras. And as we talk about the love, the heart chakra, bringing in the element of trees, leaves, bushes, herbs, the greenery of nature. Whereas the flow is much more about the ocean, the beach. And the root was more about the soil, the earth, and the fire was about the light, the sunlight, and actually having light in our environment. So here we have this dynamic interplay of all the chakras that we've discussed so far. We have the sun coming through the trees, we have the soil, and of course, the water is needed to fortify these trees. We just don't see it in this photograph, but it's there all the time in the air and through moments of downpour, drizzle, or even mist. What I like about the color green, first of all, it's one of my favorite colors, and it has nothing to do with the heart chakra. I just like green. And so green, if you look into the psychology of green, it's really interesting because There is a connotation between health, happiness, and this green color. And so here, I can just say that and have you believe me, or I can show you a couple of studies. And I think it's worthwhile to look at these studies because many of you are health professionals, but you're not psychologists, and so probably not as familiar with the psychology background and the science around color. I know some of you are really into color, and that is your profession. And so hopefully this will bolster what you do and how you think through some of the science. And I just think it's kind of curious. This stuff is, it gets me thinking in different ways. So in general, green signifies healthy. So if something is a green package, there's a perception of healthfulness, especially among consumers who place high importance on healthy eating, is what this article showed. Green is also the color of nature. And so there is the association of whatever we have in connection with nature with whenever we see that color. So this was a smaller study with just under 100 college students. And what the researchers were looking for was their emotional responses to 5 different hues, 5 intermediate hues of color, and 3 achromatic colors, kind of like the red, the yellow, the blue, the primary colors. Principal hues comprise the highest number of positive emotional responses, followed by intermediate hues and achromatic colors. And what they found was the color green evoked mainly positive emotions like relaxation and comfort because it reminded most of the people in the study of nature. So green is evoking positive emotions like relaxation, comfort. And what do we think of when we think of relaxation and comfort? We think of, I think of expansion. You don't have to rush off to do anything. You're held in the arms of something big. The color green-yellow, however, had the lowest number of positive responses because it was associated with sickness. So there are shades of green that aren't as healthful, like a pea green. There are certain shades of green, when they mix with a little bit of the fire color of yellow, they may not be as pleasing. But in general, the color green in its most green form, like a grass green, evokes a positive response. This is another study that I talked about in the whole detox book, where I dedicated every chapter to a color. And this particular study was looking at 12 healthy people, again, a small study. They were exposed for 10 minutes to either red, green, or blue fluorescent light. And so they had each of these experiences with each of these colors. And what the researchers found was that the increase of the self-similarity parameter under red and green illumination, while blue light was accompanied by a decrease. So it was a healthful property. There was some kind of response, a favorable response brought on by red and green. And so this specifically was looking at a parameter as it relates to heart rate variability, which I won't go into all of the details of, but to think that the color green impacts heart rate variability in some ways, which this study showed. They also showed red did. So red, causing some kind of alert. Again, the root and the love coming together. And blue had a reduced effect on heart rate variability, which is really interesting. I love this study because it really speaks to the benefits of nature. I presented a lot of those already in the first webinar. There's a really nice paper where it goes through all of the benefits of being in nature. This one was specifically looking at different types of activities. So people were either inside or they walked on a treadmill inside. Yuck, my least favorite. They walked outside or they were rolled outside in a wheelchair. And what they found was that walking outside produced the best response. And being outside and having that stimulation and walking were separable. There actually is a known effect of being in nature. We can actually isolate that out and say that that is beneficial. And what these researchers stated, this is all a quote from the article, walking opens up the free flow of ideas, and it is a simple and robust solution to the goals of increasing creativity and increasing physical activity. So walking outside is a twofer. You get the benefits of walking and the flow of that in conjunction with seeing nature. I call this functional activity. This is like, you don't have to go to a gym. You're just in your own surroundings and you're being a part of that. It's functional. It is not like you have to do something out of the ordinary. And then this is another study that bringing in a little bit of the science of self-compassion, self-kindness in weight regulation and health behavior change. This doesn't have anything to do with nature, but I'm bringing it in because we are talking about the body. And so one of the elements that's coming through now is looking at the role of self-compassion, self-kindness, moving away from self-deprecating activities and lack of acceptance and placement of attention on self, and looking at that within the health sphere. So how can we be more healing to ourselves by shining the light of compassion and kindness within? And so stating here, this is from a nice article quoting the work of Neff, how she talks about self-compassion consisting of kindness, self-kindness versus self-judgment, which we saw a lot of in the fire. Common humanity, so seeing ourselves as interconnected, more of the spirit chakra when we get there, and also the root versus isolation, having ourselves in a box. And mindfulness versus over-identification. It's like that loving detachment, which I just love that phrase because it feels soft and at the same time neutral. It's like we can have the best of both, where we can pull ourselves away in a loving way to be kind or to be of service or to have compassion. So there's some nice work on that. So for this week, make it simple. Let's just, the fire had such a body focus. Like I got into acidification, blood sugar, digestion, and we went full force into that. And yes, we can talk about heart disease. We can talk about asthma. We could get into breast cancer. We could really get into that on our page if we would like, and also within our webinar. However, for the sake of this particular setting us off forward onto the week, what I really wanted to have was something very simple and grounding, something kind of rooty for the love. So some of the activities would be to watch your breathing for 4 minutes. Everything is 4 within the chakra, right? So I'm trying to rally everything around that number. So watch your breathing for 4 minutes. Just time it on your smartphone. What does your breathing say about you? If you were to make a list of characteristics that you observed, was it rapid? Was it uneven? Was it erratic? Was it even? Was it smooth? Was it synchronous? What are all the words? It's similar to whenever I have people describe their eating and how I say that how you eat is how you live and how you live is how you eat. I'd like you to do the same now, but with breath. How you breathe is how you live, and how you live is how you breathe. What would we say about your life based on how you breathe? You can write some of these words down in your journal or on a piece of paper. Bring them with you to our next webinar. And then I mentioned to you that I've got a number of different videos for you. These are simple. 2 of them are TED Talks. And one is one of my personal favorites that I had to toss in there, Wim Hof, taking you through his breathing technique. And, go to your capacity of breath. Breath is a powerful vehicle. And so if we breathe too much or we take too much in, we don't want to hyperventilate. So there are exercises that are geared towards more of a hyperventilated state, and that's not healthy for everybody. You can start to change blood pH. So go with something very simple, very nourishing, and very nurturing to your body. Nothing stressful. We don't want to take the breath, something we need for life, and create injury out of it. Journaling. Here's a very simple activity. So for a series of 4 breaths, after every breath, write down the first word that comes to you. It's a little bit like laddering, only you're not hearing a word to stimulate another word. You are following your breath and letting yourself unfold into the moment of that breath and writing down the word that comes to you. And based on the 4 different words, you might have a couple of words for each one. What I'd like you to do is to create a story around that. So what symbolic story is your breath trying to reveal? That could be fun. And I'd like to hear the outcome of that in the webinar. And then if you chose to do a partner activity, and it's not too late to do a partner activity, if you decide midway through, hey, Deanna, I'd really love to, I now have the space, I'm done with the retreat, or I'd like to get on board with this, let us know. Just email us at info@foodandspirit.com. So for an hour, talk about your breathing with your partner. What have you learned about the breath and your breath this week? I'm sure you'll be able to disclose some very interesting tidbits, and the breath is always taking us into marvelous, interesting places. So let's stop there. That's our webinar for the second week. And again, going light with physiology and then bringing in more. We're going to have week 3. We're going to dive into all things plants, food, and eating. So I'll see you then.